This is setting up the USR device. This is probably inside your scale or another device externally. So this is set up to internet. So you can see this flash right now, RX32, because I'm using this kind to my scale. If you unplug it, you see the light turn off actually. So make sure it's actually light flashing. So you might need to go into your scale and set the C18 to maybe 4, and C18 to 3 for the Baudry 9600. So this light should be flashing to RX32 and it work with just flash normally. So we're actually going to set this up, and this is an internet device, so you have to set up first for your computer, and then from there you could actually connect to your Wi-Fi router or switch or something like that. So plug this in, and then plug the other end into your computer. So first go to pusr.com and click on support. So you're going to go here to serial to internet, and the first one USR-TCP232-410S. That's the one we're working on. And you can click the owner's manual, look at different stuff, spec sheets. But right now we're going to go utilities, so you're going to download these three software, USR TCP232 test. So we're going to actually test if it's working properly and test the virtual COM port. This one actually sets up the internet port, that's what we're doing right now, and then the virtual COM to create a virtual COM port. So first, click on these and download it, and I already have these installed here. So run them. So that's the first one. Plug the internet cable in, and when you click search device, you should see your device here. So by default, I have this IP address. So you kind of have two ways to really configure it. This is the first way, using the software, because this way you don't have to change the IP address of your computer. See, because it's 192.168.0.7. So the .0 usually most routers use 168.1. So you won't be able to just access it to a web browser. You have to type this into a web browser. You won't actually get anything. So that's the first problem. So that's why you're using software and plug the internet cable directly, and your search device, you could actually find it yourself and modify settings. If not, the second way would be to actually change the IP address of your device, your computer. By going click by here, open network and internet, use adapter options. Yeah, go here, go to properties, click on TCP IP4, right? You can set your IP address, your subnet mask, and default gateway. So this will be like 255.255.255.0, and then default gateway IP address, that's your router, and an IP address of your computer. So you have the first three sets of digits the same. That'll be the 192.168.0, and then you can put whatever after, and then you could change the setting from the web browser. But the software, use this. So we change the baud rate to 9600. And it's going to be a TCP client, right? And then right here you can set the COM port. So right now I'm going to set, for example, the remote port to 8234 and local port 8899, right? And I could just save COM1, saved, and then I'm going to set the DHCP to auto. So if you want to set a static IP, you should do that from your Wi-Fi router, because that's what will really determine it. If you set the static IP here, your router will just assign whatever it wants, so it won't actually match this. So it's best to do it from the router if you want to do a static IP. But base save, and if you try to click search device, you will no longer see it. So what we're going to do now, unplug the internet cable from your computer, plug it into your Wi-Fi router or switch, continue network. So I'm going to do that now because you don't know what the IP address is. So go to Wi-Fi router settings. So for example, this is Linksys router, and you could do 192.168.1.1. You can see my USR device here, and an IP address 192.168.1.134. So you could actually copy this and type this into a web browser, paste and go. So you can see I've been up for 1 minute 15 seconds. I switched over, and you'll see the RX32 settings, 9600 baud rate I set in the software. It's there, and this is currently the remote server address and the ports. So this is locally. If you plug it into your computer, this will be a local port that you're going to use. If you're remote, which is what we're doing here, connect to the Wi-Fi router, you're going to use this port, whatever you set. Right, so you could save. So remember this IP address. Right, so save, and then it'll ask for restart it. So restarting it, be okay. So that's where the second software comes in, and that is labeled USR-TCP 2.2 test. The first one was the USR-TCP 2.2 M4. So this is the one that I changed devices and the settings to begin with. But now we're going to use the test device that should test it out. So what's important is you need to go here again. That make sure it stays at the TCP client, and it's your remote IP address and port. So you're going to try to use this here. Right, so that's your IP address. And then you're going to type in the local host port. So in this case, we're doing it remotely, so it'll be 8234. Right, so right now it's not going to work. Then it happens, because it might be possible that maybe it's an invalid remote serve address. So this is what you're actually trying to access, meaning whenever you're trying to access what's the scale outputting, this is the IP address you're going to put, and this is the port you're going to use. Sometimes it might be invalid, and that's why it's not getting it, even if I refresh it and I restart the device already, but it's not working. So that's for the third software. I got to work the virtual USR VCOM. So this makes it pretty easy because I could do a smart VCOM search, and you can see the 2 ports here. This is for the same device. It just has 2 ports. I'm going to add it and create a virtual COM port. So if you wait here, you can see I'm receiving data now. So I just created a virtual COM port, and you see I assigned it to 192.160.1.104 with the remote port of 8234. Because if you actually go back in the settings now, you would actually see that it actually changed to exactly that, the 192.160.1.104. I'm guessing that's the one's valid, but you can see now it's assigned to COM1. So this makes it pretty simple, because now you could actually use COM1, baud rate 9600, all this, open it, there's the weight, you see. So now I have a virtual COM port of the device. So now I can access it, but let's say I'm not on this computer, I want to access from a different computer, assuming it's on the same network, you can use a local IP address. But you can see the virtual COM port works. Right, but I need to first delete this, because I can't have both the virtual COM port and try to access it from the IP address, this IP address, this port. So I'm just going to delete this. Right, so at least I know what's going on. Right, if I check it out, you can see 192.160.1.104, and it's changed the remote port to 7132. I've noticed that usually on the 7000 ports it doesn't work. Not sure why. So I'm going to use something in 8000 ports, 8234. Save, and then restart. So, right, so the same IP address, right? On my Wi-Fi router, to access the settings, it's still 192.168.1.134. But if I actually want to get what the reading data is, you're going to follow what the remote server address is. So that's what I'm actually going to put in the software right here. So 192.168.1.104 and port 8234. So it's working, and there it is. There's the live weight. So now, if I'm connected to the same internet, I have the local host IP address and the port. So now I can know what the weight is to scale. And this is the live weight. I could change the weight. You can see it's moving up and down as I change the weight. So this device could be inside the scale already. It could be externally. Don't know how it's being used, but this is specifically for the internet. There is a Wi-Fi version of this one, but that's how you set it up. And there's not much else to the software, because most of it could be done from the web browser using the IP address of the device. Right? You get that from the Wi-Fi router settings. Just make sure the baud rate 9600 and all these other settings. Right? And you can use the other one, RS-45, and to know if it's actually working, you can see it's connection successful. You can see it's receiving data. This is from the scale. It's in hex value, so that's why we're doing it over here. And here you're gonna be unchecking receive as hex, because you receive as hex, you're gonna receive the data the same as you saw over there, the hex values. So you gotta uncheck this, and then actually not much else misconfiguration, right? So the username and password, if this is the first time logging in, it's going to be admin, username, password, admin. So that's important. See the uptime. right? You can set the automatic IP, because if you want to set a static IP, you should do it from your Wi-Fi router. I should click on the device and actually set an IP address from here, from your router. Because the device itself would have access to it, because your router would just assign whatever IP address it wants. So even if you tell it to be static, it won't be static unless you do it from the router. So do this. You might need to try different couple IP address. That's why I try the virtual COM port first, and it'll assign a correct remote server address, because maybe it doesn't work, and then make sure your remote port number. But the virtual COM port in the serial port here, very useful, because it will search it for you. You can see TCP server, and you can already see the IP address or remote address, and if you want to do it locally, but we're going to do remote, and you can see receiving data. So if you have any questions, you could try contact us. Thank you. Bye.